They give you the ultimate amount of grip, and with grip comes confidence, and there's nothing better than just sending it really hard into a corner, accelerating out of it, making big black lines behind your rear tire, and most importantly, have a big smile on your face. That's what these tires are about, right? They're about competition and having stupid amounts of fun on the racetrack. Hi and welcome to the channel. You're watching Moto. I'm Armin, and these black donuts of joy are Pirelli Diablo SuperBike Slicks. In this video, we're going to give you an overview about Pirelli's SuperBike Slicks. We're going to talk about the sizes and construction a little bit. Then another big topic that we will cover is compounds. These slicks come in different compounds, and it can be very confusing why to choose which one. So we're going to deep dive especially into that topic because it's one of the hardest things to get information on, and that is really why I wanted to make this video. After searching YouTube, Google, there's really not a lot of content about these tires. And so you have to ask your local tire guys. And even there, in most cases, you get very incomplete answers at the best why you should choose a certain tire. So I want to give some more background information so that you have an easier time to find the right slicks for you. For me, it was a lot of trial and error and piecing together little pieces of information. And I wanted to make it easier for everyone to get into the world of slicks because they're awesome. If you learned something today, please give the video a like. That would be appreciated. Thank you for your consideration. All right, let's start with why slicks. Slicks for motorcycle street racing are simply put the pinnacle of traction. You will not find anything that's grippier and anything that performs better on the racetrack. Now, keep in mind, these are racetrack only products. At least in the USA, they are not legal for street use, and I would guess in most countries where you're watching this is the same. Keep in mind also, if you crash with these on, your insurance will not cover your crash. So how tempting it might be to use them on streets, I would recommend don't do it. The temperatures you can create, even with a high-powered liter bike on canyon roads and public roads, are so much lower than what you can create on a racetrack. So these are for racetrack only. For safety, especially because these tires only work in a very narrow window of temperatures. Now, these Pirellis are being made in Germany. Metzler and Pirelli share the same factory. So even though Pirelli is an Italian company, all Pirelli slicks for motorcycles are being made in Germany. And yes, there's a lot of other brands, right? There's Michelin, Dunlop, Bridgestone, etc., that make great slicks as well, but we're not going to cover them today. This video is exclusively about Pirellis. Honorable mention, there's also Supercorsa Track Day TD tire that is very similar to these slicks. It is slightly different in compound and construction. I'm not going to cover this one today because I don't have any experience with the TD tires. I heard good things because it's more of an entry-level slick, meaning if you're in a slower or medium group on the racetrack, that might be a good tire for you to consider as well. There's some good videos on YouTube about that, so definitely have a look. These, or at least very similar versions of these tires, are being used as the only provider for World Superbike World Championship as well. And so a lot of R&D from the superbike racing goes into these tires. Let's talk about size. Sizing the right slick is mostly pretty easy. I would start with whatever motorcycle you have. Try to replace the current size of your tires with the same size slick. Quite simple. I will put on screen now a chart of all the tire sizes. Keep in mind these are only for 17-inch rims. Pirelli also makes a wide variety of tires for ovales and other bikes with different rim sizes. But for most of you that are watching, probably 17 is what you're going to look at. Else consult with the Pirelli website, they have more information there. For the keen-eyed ones of you, you'll see the two sizes that fit current superbikes. So to you Panigale, S1000, R1 riders out there are some interesting options here. Because I mentioned Pirelli also supports World Superbike, and they actually use slightly different tires. And I have them here so I can show you the difference. So for the front, we have a 120, 70, 17. And what these numbers mean is this tire is 120 millimeters wide. The height aspect ratio is 70. So that means 70% of 120 millimeters will be your height of the tire, and then R17 stands for this will fit a 17-inch rim. But because of World Superbike racing, Pirelli also makes this. This is 125/70 R17. So this one is 5 millimeters wider and has also a very different profile. Getting a little closer, I'm trying to hold them at the same height. And you will see this one, even though this tire is used, of course, is quite a bit higher. And actually, because of the height, there's even some front fenders where this tire doesn't fit into easily, which this is the World Superbike tire. This is the normal Superbike tire. So you have a little bit of a wider tire and also a little bit taller. So the profile is also different, which you will see in the front and the rear. The profiles are different. That change in profile affects on how the tires ride and how they feel. But more to that in a second. Let me show you the rear first. It's the 265 R17 rear tire. So 200 wide, same width this time as the other rear tire, but the aspect ratio is higher. So this one is actually higher with 65% of the 200 millimeters of height. And that also gives quite a different profile. Oh, these are heavy. As a close-up, this is the 265. And you can see it's quite the conic, steep profile. And this is in comparison to 260. So a much more mellow profile. So with over-dramatically the World Superbike tires being a little bit more like this, more steep side profiles, and the normal Superbike tires being a little bit more rounded, especially in the top, you have a different behavior. Now, one thing, of course, the World Superbike tires are bigger, so they will be a little bit heavier. But it means also you have a little bit more grip. The bigger the tire, the more possible grip you have. And also the World Superbike tires are built for modern, high-performing hyperbikes, right? S1000s, Ducatis, Yamahas, etc., Hondas. So you will have a little bit more grip. But for me, more importantly, the feel is also different. With the standard Superbike tire and the more rounder profile, you have a very progressive feel on how the bike feels like when you steer it into the corner. And then when it's there, it's very stable and stays there. With the World Superbike tires, the bike turns a little bit quicker. And when you're in the middle of the corner at high lean angle, it is easier to change the line. So that sounds now all, hey, this is awesome, right? So you have a little bit more grip and it's easier to steer, but it also makes the tire a little bit more nervous. The standard Superbike tire is a little bit more like you're riding on rails. You feel very planted and very stable mid-corner. The World Superbike tire really requires from the rider to be very focused about every movement and not moving too much. When you get a lot of movement into the tire, you will also create more movement in the bike and the chassis, and that can upset the vehicle. So it's definitely something that requires more finesse and more awareness of any inputs you put into the tire. Anyway, if you have a smaller bike, they only make the standard size anyway. But for you Superbike riders out there, you have two options. The standard one, which is a little bit easier to ride, and the high performance World Superbike one, which is a little bit more expensive, but we're just talking a couple of dollars per tire. All right, let's talk a little bit more about construction. So you see slicks have stickers here. This is an SE2 compound. Then also for slicks important, here's the size, right? 260 R17 for competition only. Further down the tire, made in Germany. Then this arrow, I hope you can see it right. It indicates that this is a directional tire, even though there's no tread on it. Pirelli recommends it to only run in that direction. Now, I know people that have run it in the other direction and it's not the end of the world. It's not like the tire falls off or anything. But keep in mind that the engineers have put certain techniques, like for example, how they lay everything in the inside, structural wise, that this tire is optimized for one direction and not for the other direction. So I would only recommend it to use it in the recommended direction. And then here is a small number. They are always in a little circle. And these are very important. If you have not seen it on other tire videos yet, there's a 4-digit number. This one is 3420. And that means this tire was made in the 34th week of 2020. Now, why does this matter? Slicks only offer so much grip because it's a very special mixture, and we will come to compounds very soon. But these tires only work because they have a lot of oil in it and are built in a way to create a lot of traction. If you have a tire that is not stored right or too old, it will degrade and lose its performance. Now, if you have a slick that is a little bit older, of course you can still use it, but the fresher it is, the more you know it has the 100% of performance that it should have. Now, when you see spots like this, I hope that turns out in the camera. You can see also here, there's some green and blue colors. Yeah. This is the oil coming out of the material. And slicks are very sensitive to temperature changes. So when you use slicks, you have to use tire warmers. Without it, it's just very, very dangerous because it will take a long time to get them up to temperature. And also you might destroy the tires by trying to warm them up. And last but not least, to warm them up, let them cool down and warm them up, that's called a heat cycle. Slicks, because every time they lose a little bit of oil and a little bit of flexibility and grip by that, they wear out through heat cycles. Now, if you're on a racetrack and you put heat blankets on the tire right after you come off the track, that means essentially one entire day can be one heat cycle. You only warm them up in the morning, you keep riding the bike, and when you're not riding the bike, it's on tire warmers. That is the ideal way to use a slick because you go through very little heat cycles, which keeps the tire very healthy. Now, I mentioned briefly storage for these guys. This is an old slick, while it's used. I will throw this away. I'm just really keeping it for the video. When you have new ones, you will see some instructions. Alrighty, so slicks always come with this warning sticker. It will show you it's an SC2 compound. And recommendation for correct maintenance and use of the tire in environments. So this one says it should be not exposed to temperatures below 5 Celsius or 41 Fahrenheit. And then here really says, and also it should be never stored under this temperature, 5 Celsius or 41 Fahrenheit. If it has impacts or deformation at that temperature or less, it might even crack it. And that's no joke. These tires, when they are cold, especially at these low temperatures, turn essentially into, it feels like plastic. And then they lose all their flexibility. And if you would bounce the tire or set down your bike or try to use it, it actually might break, it might crack it. So again, this is not your tire that you can ride through snow. This is a high performance track only tire, which comes with very narrow temperatures it can operate in. So keep that in mind for storage. If you have a winter where you live, don't store them in the unheated garage because this will potentially destroy these tires. The best way to store slicks is in a moderate climate where the temperature doesn't change a lot up and down. So ideally, right somewhere in a room where you have control over the temperature. And then here even says you should warm them up to at least 20 Celsius or 68 Fahrenheit 24 hours before putting on the bike. So right, what they're just really trying to say is the tires want to be warm before they get stretched or used at all. And it says if you have any cracks, don't ever use this tire, throw it away. And here just shows you the size, 265 R17 Diablo SuperBike and a barcode, nothing too special. Now, one thing that is special about slicks is these little holes here, here, and here are your tread wear markers. So this is the minimum amount that they remove from the tire. So you can see by looking at these, right? When it's brand new, this is 100% tread wear left. When these dots completely disappear, that means that area of the tire is completely used up. On a racetrack, unlike a street tire, you usually make this area disappear first because this is where you go into the power band, and the big bikes especially wear out the side where like this is 40 to maybe 20% lean angle where you really accelerate out of a corner, and these dots will disappear first. This is the side grip and this is the center grip for straight line performance, which I've never seen people on a track bike wear out because you always wear the sides out first. So yeah, these are your wear indicators. Oh, one more thing about the standard Superbike tires versus the World Superbike version. This is a 120 front, so the standard. And you see there's this chicken strip remaining. And to be honest, I never quite understood why Pirelli and many other manufacturers build it like this. With this track tire, I probably went until like 56, 57 degree lean angle. And I still had a centimeter left to go. So on previous track days, I've gone, even a record was 61 degrees without crashing. That's always an important question, right? Like at 61 degree, did you actually crash or stay up? And no. So there's always something left. And so with the World Superbike tires, it's actually different. When you go to full lean around like 58, 60 degrees, then the new World Superbike spec tire is used until every little bit. So you actually use all the rubber you paid for. And same with the rear. The rear for the standard tires used to, at modest lean angles, already like 40 degrees or so, you would have no chicken strip left, meaning you used all the tire and it deforms a little bit more at higher lean angles to give you more grip. But now with the Superbike spec, taller tires, you actually will only get rid of the chicken strip at, I want to say, around 55 degree lean angle or abouts. I think it's more designed for modern superbikes and you can easier get the most out of it as it is now. Alrighty, last thing for construction before we jump to the compounds. How do Pirelli slicks actually feel? Now, if you just watch this, the carcass is really soft. Pirellis are known to have very soft carcasses. So what it means is it's a squishy tire, and because of that, it makes the ride pretty plush. With a softer tire, the suspension has to work less. But the downside is Pirellis give you less feedback than, for example, Dunlop tires. Dunlop tires are known to be the opposite, with a very stiff carcass, where the carcass is the construction of this tire and everything that holds the rubber together. Now these tires have a lot of grip and can deform and form around the asphalt and grip it really, really well. But they don't give you that much feedback. Now, of course, they give you a good amount of feedback, where like racers at the highest level with Top Rock and so on use them for great success. But just keep that in mind. Everyone is different. Some people love to feel every little rock and crack, and firmer tires are better for that. This one makes you feel a little bit less of the surface that you're riding. Of course, you still feel quite a good amount, especially on race bikes with race seats and a very stiff suspension. But it's a feel thing. So if you know you're somebody that needs to feel everything, this might be not the right tire for you, but it's a feel thing. So in the end, you have to try them out and see what works for you. And also for each bike, the setup might be different. Okay, now we talked about size and gave you a basic breakdown about construction and a couple of things to know about the tires. How do you choose now the right compound? And when you go to the Pirelli website, you only get these graphs. So right, you see different compounds for front and rear and different applications, but that's about it. There's also a nice little write-up, and we're gonna start with that. But I have some better information for you that we'll just share in a moment. And this is still relevant, right? So even finding this takes quite some digging in the interwebs. So for the front, you have SC0, SC1, SC2. And for the rear, you have SC0, SCX now also nowadays, it's not added here yet, SC1, SC2, SC3. They are just the compounds. And the lower the number, the softer the compound. Now what actually soft and hard means in the chemical terms of that, don't worry about it. When you watch World Superbike or MotoGP and they mention the soft tires, that's exactly the same thing. SCX being the softest, 1 is harder, 2 is harder, 3 is the hardest that you barely see used anywhere but endurance racing because it's so hard. Fun fact, also the track day tires and also some parts of the Pirelli Supercorsa street tires are actually using the SC3 compound because it's a very hard compound that wears very slowly and deals really good with low temperatures and warms up quickly. So for road riding, that's the kind of qualities you want to have. Even Pirelli says you probably don't have to use a tire warmer for SC3 compound. And there's some great videos on YouTube about Pirelli track day tires. But this is interesting when you look at it. SC0 compound is recommended for ultra low temperatures. So from 8 Celsius or 47 Fahrenheit to a high of 25 Celsius or 77 Fahrenheit. So usually track temperatures that don't happen here in California. While we're not talking about air temperature, but the track temperature is measured on how warm or cold the ground is. So very rare tire. I'm not going to talk in this video much more about the SC0 front because it just has such a narrow use and it's just not seen a lot. SC1 compound, very strong, has a wide range of operating parameters. Operates best from 15 Celsius or 59 Fahrenheit to 40 Celsius or 104 Fahrenheit. It's a rough guidance. I used SC1 front tires at way over 150 Fahrenheit ground temperature. The air temperature was at those days like 115. And yeah, the tire gets a little bit greasy and moves a little bit more around on you. So it's not perfect. And if you would go on a race, you wouldn't use that tire. But it's totally still manageable. With going lower than the recommended temperature, I personally don't do it. I simply really measure the ground temperature and only start using those tires when the road warms up. So if the first session in the morning is too cold for those slicks, I skip it because I'd rather skip the first session, get another coffee, than crashing with a tire that's not made for those low temperatures and therefore doesn't develop that grip. And sometimes even though if they grip, you just tear them apart, where within a couple of laps you have big tears throughout the tire. Slicks are very sensitive to temperature. So that's why I'm harping on so much about temperatures. SC2 then recommended above 22 or 72 Fahrenheit, and they say effective until 50 Celsius or 122 Fahrenheit. So definitely a tire for higher temperatures. But you see, this is the little information that you get from Pirelli. So essentially the windows for temperature, and then you can see this is also similar for the rear. They mentioned a little bit that a certain tire gives you a lot of grip and how durable they are, but I found something much better. So I went to the German website Renngrip, and so they are a dealer for performance tires in Germany. So if you're in Germany, definitely buy a tire from them because they are awesome and they're really helpful with the information. Let's start diving into the tires, and I will put up this graphic here for the front tires. So I grabbed this infographic and just translated it from German to English, so it's easier for you to consume. SC1, SC2, and SC3, well, like I mentioned, track day tires have that one, or supercrossers. And this one is awesome, right? So you have the front tire, and then we have overall grip. You can see SC1 is the grippiest tire for the front. SC2 has 2 dots and SC3 has 1 for less grip. You can see also SC1 and SC2 are meant for competition, and SC3 more like for riding for fun, not professional competitions. I would say SC1 and SC2 are also great for track day riders. You probably want to be in the fast group so you can keep the tires warm enough. In the medium to slow groups, it will be just a little bit harder to keep those tires in those narrow windows of operation for temperature. Then stability is very interesting. The SC1 has the least stability. SC2 has 2 and SC3 has 3 scores for that. But what does stability mean? You notice it the most at the front tire under heavy braking. So with the SC1, it's relatively easy if you have strong brakes to get the front to compress. And even if you don't bottom out, the front will move around a little bit. The tire is just softer and will get squished. So that makes it very flat, and then it has a hard time of tracking properly. And you will get quite a bit of movement into it. So if you're somebody that brakes super hard and needs a more firm front, a lot of racers actually that are on a club racing level, they go for the SC2. Even at World Superbike, I think they use it quite often, just because for very heavy breakers, like Top Rock, right, or also normal humans, they just use the front a lot and want to have that stability. so you can really be confident at the corner entrance. SC2 is probably the better choice because it just gives you more support on hard engines. At the very, very maximum lean angle, the SC1 actually has a little bit more grip. But then also keep in mind, SC2 works better at high temperatures. SC1 has a broader temperature range, and you can use it also when it gets a bit colder. So SC2, even though it's a harder compound, probably the better one for those really experienced riders or club races. SC1 would be my recommendation to just for anyone. Always, if it's your first slick front tire, get an SC1. Then feedback. Because the SC1 is so soft, you actually also feel a lot and it moves a little bit. So it's a little bit more lively, it's a little more talkative. SC2, because it's stiffer, a little bit less so. And SC3, the same. Then what I mentioned already a couple of times, but usability for lower temps, SC1 is awesome. SC2 is not good, doesn't work at very low temperatures. And SC3 is pretty good at that as well. Usability for higher temps, SC1 has a limit, but like I said, I also use it at very high temperatures. Just keep in mind you will have less grip, and as long as you ride around that, you will be fine. But at really high temperatures, SC2 is really good. Again, that's why it's more recommended for very fast riders. Durability, how long does the tire last? Now, front tires last quite a bit longer than rear tires anyway, at least at high-powered superbikes. If you have a R3, R4, smaller capacity engines, you might wear front tire to rear tire almost out at the same rate, maybe like 2 rear tires to a front tire. But at superbike level, if you go fast, you can wear out a slick rear with a S1000, Panigale, etc. within 1 day, or racers even within 40 minutes, because they just are so hard on acceleration that they wear out the sides of the tires really quickly. So in that regards, SC1, SC2 essentially wear out in the same rate. Also from my own experience, I've used many SC1s and many SC2s. They kind of wear out the same rate. But in the front, the limiting factor often, unless you're really amazing on the brakes, is you should probably change the tire before it gets too old. Even though a front tire on the track still has plenty of remaining rubber, the heat cycles that I mentioned already are a problem. So go after your own budget, because tires are not cheap at all. But I usually don't keep a front tire for more than 4 to 6 track days, and then I get a new one, even though the tire still looks really good. The reason there is, with every heat cycle, it loses a little bit of elasticity and the tire loses grip. So even though it looks fine, it will have less grip with every application that you do. So keep that in mind when you look at front tires and when to change them. Racers that really want to compete at the highest level, they throw front tires away sometimes multiple times per session, so they just have the maximum available grip right available, and take it in account that they waste a lot of money by throwing still, for normal humans, perfectly acceptable tires away. So in summary, the SC1 compound has the largest field of application and almost always fits. So if you start with an SC1 front tire. And if you're a really, really aggressive rider, fast rider, or the temperatures exceed 45 Celsius, track temperature it is, then maybe consider an SC2. And now we're moving to the rear tires. All right, here's the graphic for the rear tires, and we'll keep it up. We have a lot more options here to talk about. So we have the SCX tire. Now, these are pretty hard to get your hands on. Usually only people in serious competitions get their hands on those. Moto America, World Superbike, you will hear a lot about SCX tires. Some club racers also get access to it, but if you go to your tire provider, SCXs might be hard to get or impossible to get. SCX riders consider a qualification tire because these tires don't last very long but have the ultimate amount of rear grip. SC0, it's a very, very soft tire that you also see a lot used in World Superbike. Then the very typical track day tires are SC1, SC2, and the actually product called track day tire TD is the SC3 tire, just like with the front. Now, if you look at it, you already see SCX, SC0 have the only maximum performance ratings here. Then SC1 and SC2 are rated to have 2 dots or medium performance, and SC3 has the lowest performance. And that performance for a rear tire, of course, is how much grip do you have accelerating hard out of those corners. Now, to my experience, the SC1 rear tire has a little bit more performance than the SC2, especially when it gets hot. It just hooks up better and drives. But then also the durability of the SC1 is a little bit lower. But I think it's just whatever you get in extra performance, you just pay by degrading the tire even quicker. So SC1, in my experience, especially on hot days, a little bit grippier, a little bit stickier. In the hobby area, SC2 mixture has, again, like the SC1 in the front, a large field of applications, large temperature window, almost always fits. So SC1 in the front, SC2 in the rear is my recommended default setup. SC1 and SC0 are only used for hot days when the asphalt, tarmac, track temperature is over 40 Celsius and is used a lot for racing. SC3 is more like your beginner multi-day track day tire, and nice thing about this one also, it works at lower temperatures quite well. For consistency, what is meant is how much performance does this tire have over its entire tire life. And so the SCX tire has a very steep drop off where professional racers only get 1 or 2 hot laps out of it, and then the performance already drops off. For SC0, SC1, SC2, it's more consistent where you have a longer amount of the same performance. And then SC3, which is also used for endurance racing, has a very long time the same performance. But then for max grip, you see SCX, SC0 have the maximum amount grip. You know by now SCX has more grip than SC0. SC1 has also a little bit more grip than SC2. But in this rough chart, more or less they're comparable, but they have slight advantages over each other. Temps, SCX is okay for low temperatures. Don't use SC0 at low temperatures. I've seen them shredded apart at Cold Laguna Sega days after just a few laps. They really don't like it. SC1 has a good window and really likes warmer temperatures for the rear. It's different than from the front. And then the SC2 has the widest range of temperatures. So you can use it at low temperatures, which also means when you put less heat into the tire. So for you people that just start to go into the A group on a track day, or still fast B group riders, SC2 is definitely the safest choice for you. Then usability for higher temperatures. SCX, pretty good. SC0 is the best one there. So if you have really stinking hot days, SC0 is your tire. If you can get your hands on, they're also less in the inventory. They are available and you can of course special request them, but they are a little bit hard to get. SCX sometimes is impossible to get unless you have special contracts with Pirelli. SC1 still really good at high temperatures, just like the SCX, and then SC2 loses and gets a little bit greasy at very high temperatures. Again, just like with the front tire, if it gets really hot, they are still usable. You will just find the limit and slide around a little bit more quicker when it's very, very hot. Last but not least, durability. And there's no big surprise there. The qualifying tire has the worst durability. After a couple of laps, peak performance is gone, and then it will continue to wear out really quickly. SC0, SC1, SC2 all have good durability, even though SC0 will wear out a little bit quicker than SC1, and it will wear out a little bit quicker than SC2, especially when they're used at pace. SC3 is the hardest compound, best durability, and again, really great. Beginner tires, you usually get those compounds only in track day or road tires. Phew! Okay, there was a lot of details I was through at you. Thanks for making it all the way through the video. There's a lot more to talk about tires and slicks in particular than I had time for today. We didn't talk about tire warmers, pressure, how to read the tires. Like Dave Moss, for example, has a great YouTube channel where there's a lot of details about that. But today, I hope I achieved to teach you a little bit about slick tires, especially the construction, what is different about them, what tire size to choose, and also how the heck to decipher those different compounds. So now you know my default go-to is SC1 in the front, SE2 in the rear, then you have the biggest spectrum of temperatures and also the most grip in the front and really good grip and durability in the rear. So for most bikes, it's a really safe starting point. And from there on, you can experiment, get different tires. Keep in mind, these wear out a lot quicker on a racetrack than street tires do. They give you the ultimate amount of grip. And with grip comes confidence. And there's nothing better than just sending it really hard into a corner, accelerating out of it, making big black lines behind your rear tire. And most importantly, have a big smile on your face. That's what these tires are about, right? They're about competition and having stupid amounts of fun on the racetrack. So I hope I made this a little bit easier for you to pick the right tire. Would be nice if you leave a like, maybe even a subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. All right, that's everything for me this time. Over and out, and until next time. Bye.